Hello, I'm Chuck Martin, and welcome to the Voices of the Internet of Things. With me today is Keith Pine, Chief Operating Officer of Organic, the interaction agency, and co-founder of Synthetic, the division dedicated to cognitive technology. Keith has spent his career in the digital agency and technology space and started his career as a web designer. He is a former Vice President and Director of Digital Operation at Draft FCB and Vice President and Director of Digital Project Management and Web Analytics at Young and Rubicam Brands. At Synthetic, the focus is on how to apply cognitive technology to reimagine how brands and consumers interact. Welcome, Keith.
Thank you for having me, Chuck.
So tell me how this all began, because I know your agency is really kind of moving forward at light speed on this. Where did this come from?
Yeah, Organic, as you know, it's one of the first digital agencies, and our roots are in technology and in innovation. Over the last couple of years, we've been kind of, I would say, dabbling and experimenting in the cognitive technology space with, voice recognition, some sentiment analysis work. And, just in kind of the research we've been doing and the conferences we've been going to with, kind of like TechCrunch over the last couple of years, we've really started to see the wave in this space start to rise. And, for us, we were kind of posed with a challenge where we knew that this is going to be a really big space, and we want to take advantage of this as a company. But you've got kind of two choices. You could wait for client opportunities, or you can develop the skill set kind of proactively. It's a bit of a chicken or the egg type thing. And, for us, we felt very strongly that it was important for us to, purposely step into this space in a really big way and develop a capability before people were really asking for it specifically, because we believe that, companies that, kind of purposely, see a white space and leap toward it, get met with, a tailwind behind them, and those that kind of wait, just kind of get left in the dust really quickly.
Do you see this as sort of what happened with mobile several years ago, where mobile was basically coming on strong, but agencies ultimately said, okay, we need to be a mobile agency, or we have to have mobile first, and basically it went from an add-on to becoming core as part of the fundamental mission of an agency?
Yeah, I think it's similar to that, but I actually think it's a little bit bigger. And the analogy that I like to point to is actually like the dawn of like the commercial internet, where you could think back into the days of like the late 90s and really even the early 2000s, where the internet had been around for a long time prior to that. But it was just a time where businesses were still like, is this going to be a real thing? Is this going to, are people really going to adopt this? Is this really going to change the world as we know it? And the answer, of course, is yes. But back then, you still had, and it's really not that long ago, where many people were still kind of skeptical or didn't know how to dabble in the space and start to pursue a digital component of their business. And you could flash forward to today, where you see there's companies that have been doing it for a long time and are doing great, and there's still many people that are still kind of struggling, and whether or not they'll make it into the next decade, who knows? So I think it's more than just kind of a small shift in kind of how people are interacting. I think this is a real material change of how all facets of kind of humanity in our lives are going to be impacted by this.
So I guess what you're saying, it sounds like, is that mobile was basically an extension of the commercial web, basically just moving processing to the hand versus from the PC. And like the internet was transformational, you're suggesting that this whole move is really another major transformation, just like the internet was.
Yeah, that's totally right. the way that I think a lot of these changes happen is you could think of it like an S curve, where in the beginning of an S curve, the gradual increase is slow, and it's like, oh, are things really happening? Are we really moving forward? And then all of a sudden, there's a real steep increase in terms of adoption and innovation. It's like when you're taking a shower and you're trying to get the temperature right. It's too cold, what I mean, you're turning it a little bit more, and next thing you know, it's like way too hot. I think that this space is going through a similar path.
So why is that? Is it because, I mean, AI has been around forever, as you know. Is it because the technology is now there to basically to support it, or is it something else?
It's a couple of different things. So you're right. I mean, the ultimate wrapper of artificial intelligence has been around since the 50s with computer chess. And machine learning is not a new science by any means. But what has happened in recent years is a couple of things. One, the amount of data that is available has exploded. From from the internet to mobile phones to people inputting all types of information into social media and everything beyond, as well as just basic first party data as well too. So there's just more data available now than ever before, and that's ultimately the fuel for all cognitive technology. So you've got that. You also have the computer processing power of GPUs that are more widely available and more powerful than ever before. So you've got this layer that can sit on top of that to actually process all this data and has the computing power to make it happen. And then you've also got just practically an infinite amount of storage with cloud computing. And the final thing is we're in a bit of an API economy where the actual technology and is more accessible to everyday people. Like Watson is a really simple example of that, where you don't have to be this amazing computer scientist to start experimenting and start working in the space. So when you take all those things together, it's kind of the perfect storm to really kind of reboot this science and really kind of usher in the day of cognitive technology.
And speaking of data, is it the more data, the better? I mean, like in Watson, for example, we recently spoke with IBM, and they need the more data they have, the kind of the better the machinery is, the machine to machine. So they buy things like weather and then plug that into everything. Is that what you're seeing? That the more data you have, the more power you have?
Yeah. So it's a couple of things. So I mean, these are machines that get better through training, and essentially, the water that you're putting through the pipes is data. So the more training that you can give one of these machines, the better it's going to get at performing whatever task you've designed it to do. The caveat, though, I think that's important to notice is that it's not just about just kind of quantity. I think kind of quality of the data is also important as well, to because it's kind of garbage in, garbage out, and we also want to be design systems that are kind of not biased or making kind of false interpretations based off of a limited set of data as well.
So where do you see AI in terms of real AI? Because right now, I'm sure in the market, a company now says, yeah, we do AI, and they're really not doing AI. They're really just doing data processing.
Yeah, I think what I mean. That's the one of the. I think the issues right now out in the world is I think that people have they don't have the right, kind of academic understanding of what this technology is all about. And, we like to think of the ultimate wrapper as cognitive technology, which is, really technology that can ingest data or any sort of input, understand that, make an interpretation, perform an action, and then get better and better. And that whole kind of walk that I just described. That's been around for a while. That's how basic spam filtering works in any major email client. Like they don't have every single permutation designed to say like, okay, well, if it's got this type of headline or if it's from this type of person, it's spam. Basically, it's learning and understanding, kind of how to identify what something could be, so you don't have to kind of put every single one of those permutations in there. And I think additionally, one of the items that people get hung up on and don't understand is, right now, we are in the world of what is called narrow AI, which is really about performing very specific tasks that are fueled by typically highly tagged or labeled data sets. The advancements and the worries that people have around cognitive technology is around something called general AI, which is kind of more like a human brain can think to kind of understand abstract tasks, be able to kind of move from one to another, be able to learn based off of simple directions, that sort of thing. So I think what the media doesn't do a good job of is kind of helping to evangelize that type of knowledge to people, so they could really understand what this is all about, which I think will help with the ultimate proliferation in this space.
So where do brands fit in this today? Are they saying, "Hey, we need some AI here because that's the big thing," or are they saying we have this problem, and then you're coming to them and saying, "Actually, AI is a potential solution for that"?
Yeah, it's kind of it's a little it's a mixed bag. I think a lot of place that where the primary place where a lot of brands are playing right now is in chatbots, and I think that chatbots have their place and their purpose, but with many marketing tactics, many people just jump on because it's kind of cool and it's like a new and shiny thing. So outside of that, I think a lot of people just don't know what to do with this technology. They might have a real conceptual understanding of, hey, I get that this is kind of like a game-changing thing, but how do I apply it? Or they went to TechCrunch and they saw some cool technology, but it doesn't really have any practical application. And the way that we think of this at Synthetic is really how can we solve business problems and how can we create better user experiences with cognitive technology being the kind of undercurrent of everything that we do. And that goes to kind of finding insights from unstructured data sets. It's about kind of automating tasks that are kind of easily repeatable by a person, just to help free them up to think about more important things, and also about providing really hyper natural and personalized interactions.
So it's Synthetic. Is Synthetic really sort of a lab?
I wouldn't say it's a lab, because me personally, when I think of a lab, it's just kind of creating things, and it doesn't really kind of the application doesn't really exist, and it's just kind of just generally just experimenting. And experimentation is a huge part of what we're doing, but I think the way that I would describe it is, we're doing two things. So we're creating purposeful experiments to say, we've got an API or a new technology that we want to explore, and let's figure out, some ways to understand that, and then subsequently, okay, cool. How could we bring these to our clients? So, it's ultimately, designed as a utility to learn, develop capability, experiment, but then bring it to the clients to have them be able to apply this hopefully to their business.
So you're basically doing this with clients. I mean, you know who your clients are, obviously. So you're doing it with clients in mind, and then you'd say, hey, this is something that client X potentially could use. Let's go show them.
Yeah, that's a piece of it, but we're actually also partnering directly with clients in the experimentation space. We're working with a major furniture retailer right now, where we've gotten together. We've identified a couple of business problems, and then developed a series of hypotheses of how cognitive technology could help to solve those. And we're starting to do some early prototypes and experiment directly with them in more of kind of a co-creation space.
Don't you sort of need that anyway to get the real data?
It depends. For some applications, you do. For others, you don't necessarily need the client's data for that. Like, and I'll give you an example. One of the things that we're working on right now is an image-based search application. So I'll kind of change the how we're actually doing it just for privacy reasons. But basically, what you could say, I go to a clothing website, a retailer, and I am in the market for an outfit similar to a look that I saw in GQ. So basically, what we are developing is a machine where the user can upload a picture of a look that they like, and then the machine will say, okay, I understand that is a sweater, a pair of jeans, and a hat, and here's kind of the style that it aligns to, and then that's kind of like an output or a call that could then be kind of plugged into any client's product repository, and as long as it's tagged properly, generates search results. So we're not held back by not having direct access to client data. There's a lot of kind of third party and public data that we use to do the early experiments, and then to take things to the next level. Obviously, you would have to get kind of more direct access to syncing that with whatever client system it is there. But there's plenty to do without that.
So, do you see this basically the synthetic approach as a trend for agencies that they're going to take AI seriously and the whole cognitive movement seriously? That they need to devote serious resource to it, or do you think it's unique because your agency sort of came from a tech innovation background?
I think it's a real unique thing for organic. In the agency game, it's really a model where you are selling hours of people. And if you're not selling every single hour of every single person, then you're ultimately paying for that yourself. We've been able to create the proper funding to really have this separate group kind of be free from a lot of the typical constraints you would find in an advertising organization, to really create the latitude to freely experiment and kind of have just kind of the people capital to make it happen. And that's really been a major advantage to us, and it's a real unique thing that organic does. I haven't really seen that in other organizations. I think some people might kind of talk about it, but when you really get under the hood and see what it's all about, there's really not a lot there. And I think it's really, kind of given us a leg up to proactively, kind of pursue ideas and opportunities, and also, most importantly, have the capability to actually do that. Because, anybody can have an idea, but if you can't bring it to life, it's not worth anything. And that's what we can do as well.
So I'm interested. What spiked this? Was it some research that somebody did and said, "Hey, this cognitive thing is going to be really big," or was it sort of collective wisdom that we all said, "Hey, we're seeing this everywhere. Let's really focus on it," or was it one person saying, "Hey, I see this AI coming. Let's jump on it"?
I think it was a couple of key individuals here at Organic. We've been going to TechCrunch in San Francisco and New York over the last couple of years. And what we saw was kind of the AI vendor pool. Like it was kind of a couple of desks, and then then it was an entire aisle, and then it was just kind of like a major showing, and we could see that there was really cool advancements being made in the academic world, which is always kind of the root of any sort of innovation. And I think we just kind of, connected the dots to say, like, this is real. The moment is now, and nobody's really playing here. This is a bit of a white space, and we can take advantage of it. And in addition to that, we were already starting to do some early, conversational interface stuff with a number of clients. We're one of the first. We've worked with Quaker to be one of the first brands on Alexa, the Alexa platform. So, we were doing some work, and then I think, just our natural, kind of curiosity, kind of put those two things together. That's what lit the fire.
So where do you see voice AI kind of today and going forward in all of this?
I think, voice is a really important part of the user experience. And I think that it is growing more and more, and it's going to become more common. And I would just kind of put it under the umbrella of, people want interactions that feel natural. And if I'm going to an e-commerce website, that's a real fixed experience for the most part. There's a fixed navigation, there's a fixed way that the products are organized, and there's a real fixed way that I interact with everything. But if I could talk to an e-commerce website and say, hey, I'm looking for this sort of thing in this sort of way, and have a really personal and natural experience kind of served up to me, that's great. One, that means I could spend less time trying to kind of do my business, which would either make me really happy about the brand, or kind of free me up to kind of pursue additional purchases and things like that. So I think voice is a super important component of this whole thing. I think the thing that people are starting to investigate right now is that voice commands and voice search is different than text search.
Oh yeah, totally. So in terms of the market, is that where consumers are going to start to see AI? They won't necessarily know it's AI. They'll just see that my experience with interacting with how to buy something is different.
Yeah, I think it's in some cases it will be obvious, but I think in many, it's these kind of subtle nuances that you might not realize, and people are interfacing with that in many facets. Right now, just from the recommendations you get on Spotify to Amazon, one being able to kind of serve you up things before you need it, and then be able to anticipate what you need and deliver it to your house really quickly. So I mean, these are all businesses that are doing really well, and I think have a high degree of customer satisfaction, and are actively using cognitive technology to underpin kind of all facets of their business and how the customers interact with their products, which is just a better thing. And I mean, that's what in our minds AI is all about. It's about kind of doing things better as people as an extension of human experience.
So, do you see the monster players, Google, Facebook, Apple? Do you see them having a kind of a major impact because they do something like the Amazon example you just mentioned? I mean, Amazon ultimately can send things to your house before you even order them because they know what you're going to order.
Yeah, the big players out there. I mean, it's Amazon, it's Facebook, Google, IBM, and then outside of the business world, it's the academic space. These guys are putting kind of the most money and the most resources against this technology. And if you could look at even like how they're pursuing it, they're taking an approach similar to how Synthetic is doing it, where it's about experimenting and really, just trying to see how can we push the boundaries, how can we make things happen, and then iterating and evolving those findings for more practical applications. But yeah, those guys, they're the players, and they're leading the charge. And no coincidence, they're also the folks sitting on the most data as well.
So what do the smaller guys do? The people who don't have the resource, they don't have separate entities like you do. How do they play in this arena? Do they just have to follow?
I think there's a lot of room for smaller players to play. I think kind of the API world is getting bigger and bigger in the space. With Watson, there's also a lot of open source stuff. With Google TensorFlow, the Magenta projects, things like that, where kind of the big guys who have access to the resources from to get kind of the smart people doing stuff are then kind of putting it out there in more accessible formats for smaller people to start to experiment with and to make advancements of their own. So I don't see a world where it's just kind of the big guys have access to this technology and nobody else does. I think what we're going to be seeing over the next couple of years is more services and platforms to bring this type of technology to all types of people. Not only developers, but just non-technical folks as well.
And the obvious last and big elephant issue, where do you see privacy in all of this?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's ultimately a data privacy issue, right? And what we're creating here is another vehicle to kind of to feed that machine, and it gets tricky, because nobody really knows what happens, behind the curtain. So I think, the more that these companies can do to provide, kind of transparency to their operations and how they are, treating your data and what they're doing with it and what they're not doing with it, I think that's really the only thing that can be done to kind of to help in that space.
Great. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think for us, the main thing that we're really just trying to encourage our clients to do is to actively, kind of or proactively seek ways that they can apply this technology to their business, to start small and to start experimenting. And I think they would be, really surprised with, how quickly the light bulbs start to go off in your head to say, oh, this is really cool. And this actually conceptually is not as, hard or as complex as I thought. And we could do it for this thing. We could automate this. Maybe we can, use this data to get insights from. So I think people just need to kind of get over that inhibition and get over that hump, and they'll be off to the races.
Thank you, Keith Pine, and thank you all for listening to the Voices of the Internet of Things.